Good for you. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
So it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
No problem.
I'd love to begin our conversation before we get into your life of, family addiction recovery and all of the mission that goes into what you do by asking 4 years ago, we were wrapping our heads around this global pandemic. How did
Right.
you make it through that time period and how did it change you?
It was, I hesitate to say this in front of people. It was relatively simple. So I had already shifted to full-time work at home and was on computer. So there wasn't a shift for me as far as that was concerned. I live across the street from the what is combined elementary school through high school. So my boys just came home for spring break and never went back.
Yeah.
We didn't have the same level of quarantine that everybody else did because we're small and we're rural and we have a lot of guns.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but the deeper you get in Colorado, as we went to some other places, they still had Fourth of July parades. They're like, try and come take it from us.
Yeah.
So the boys and I, they had school online, which was a big shift for their teachers. They were not quite ready for that. And then we'd play basketball for lunch every afternoon, and then we'd do afternoon things. They were like 13 and 11. No, they were a little older than that, maybe 15 and 13. I had it easy because of the work shift, because my guys were older. My husband was out on the road at the time, most of the time, as being a trucker. It really wasn't bad.
Okay.
I
Well,
hate to say that.
I hear that a lot, and I don't think it's I think there's almost a level of buyer's remorse. I think people feel weird about saying it was okay. I mean, it
Right.
doesn't take away from what we all lived through, but I think there was people that just capitalized on it and took advantage of what it was for what it was and went on from there. So let's get to the heart and soul. Speaking of your work, of what you do for a living on a daily basis, I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders. It's career day. One of the kids inquisitively says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
So, do you know that sometimes your mommy and daddy don't feel good? Sometimes they are dealing with big adult problems and they don't know how to cope with it. So, what I do is I help people like your mommy and daddy figure out how to cope with big adult problems in healthy ways. Can you tell me some healthy ways that you help yourself? What do you do? Do you go and run outside? Do you play with your friends? Do you eat salad? Ew, or carrots? What do you do when you don't feel good, when things aren't going well? Who do you turn to help you? That's what.
So yeah, and that's perfect. And they would totally get that. What did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
For a while, I wanted to ride for the Olympics, but then
Okay.
I realized I'd have to give up everything else that I did. And as much as I loved horses, I wasn't sure that that's what I wanted to do. Um, but more than anything, my sister would tell you that I just kind of did what came along and I was just there doing the thing at that
Yeah.
time.
So let's go back to your childhood, to the beginnings where you were born and raised, and how these seeds got into you to help people, to help parents, and to help people get to a better place in their lives. How did this evolve into who you are today?
I had some childhood trauma, like a lot of people who do a helping profession like this, that I didn't even realize. I didn't realize it. I was doing this even before I realized that. But looking back, that was happening. My parents came from a missionary background. There were preachers and teachers, so service was part of our lives. God was part of our lives. And there was a conversation I had as a young adult with my mom as I was walking away from God and the church. She said, I really struggle with this, but he will find you. And so I walked away, and the next conversation with her was, I came to her and I said, I don't know how people do it without a higher power. I'm working through, the steps and all those types of things without a higher power. She says, I don't know either. And so we began to pray together. We began to work through things together. And as my life as an adult fell apart, she was faithful. And what I saw her do every morning, she got up every, she never talked about it, got up every morning and did a quiet time, got up every morning, read her Bible, read some passage of scripture, read something every single morning and never talked about it. And finally, I cued in that this was one of the keys that allowed her to go through. Life is not simple, allowed her to go through her life. And I began to model that and began to model her service. And look, I'm not as quiet or gentle as she is, but I'm just a different character as far as that's concerned. But began to see that truly the greatest of these is love. The more we can love ourselves, that's always first. He doesn't say love your neighbor first and then love yourself. He says love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
And then I can come from a full place where I can say to you, hey, I'm not exactly sure what's going on or what you need right now. I can listen.
Yeah. So who's been a hero for you, an inspiration for you in your life?
My mom has definitely been a huge hero. And then as I look back over, I had a Sunday school teacher, so that preteen, kind of mid-teen, who really just loved on me and accepted me for exactly who I was and spent time with me. And that eyeball to eyeball contact with an adult who's not your parent, she was just right there. And she's one of those people, like I said, I came from families of preachers and teachers, one of those people that could almost be nameless, but the face you're going to remember and the connection you're going to remember. It's those everyday heroes who they didn't write a book, they weren't on a TV show, they weren't on anything, but they were there when you needed. They were the coach, they were the teacher, they were the Sunday school teacher. Maybe they were the parent in a youth group who just took that time when you needed that time. So
Yeah.
those to me have always been the everyday heroes that really make, who runs the school, who runs the church, who runs that. It's those people.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this. If you could meet one person alive on the planet right now that you find fascinating or interesting, who would that be?
Well, I spend time with Jesus every day.
Okay. Okay. There you
I
go.
mean, there are some other people. I don't know if I'd be scared to meet him or not. I mean, King David was not the most subtle guy in the
Yeah.
world, right?
Yeah.
Those types of things. Or right now, I'm working through Esther to really understand. Can you imagine walking into the king unbidden, going, if I die, I die, because I'm going to die anyway if they're going to kill all the Jews. So we're just going to do it.
Yeah.
Those characters, I think, would be fun.
Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this. What is your motivation every day to get up, to do the work that you do to help others? Because it's not just a job. You're giving of yourself to help other people, and then to also evolve as a human being yourself. What is that combined spark for you?
I think I have two pieces for that. Getting up every day. Beth Moore says this, and I can never remember where she says it. She said, I didn't think I was valuable enough to really work on myself. But when those babies came along, I knew that I had to get better for them. So I know without beyond a shadow of a doubt that as my I get better, my family gets better, and we understand more about loving each other and loving other people, that the community gets better. Maybe I'm not in your household, but you know what? My boys are going to touch the world. They're going to get married. Their children are going to touch the world. How can I foster that the greatest of these is love, that understanding other people, that hanging on to dear life, to your understanding of who higher power is something that will bring you, as Viktor Frankl says, meaning in life. What's the biggest thing that we need is meaning in life. So those kiddos for one, but then as I stretch that out, I look at the mission here, and the mission is always, how do I show up with integrity? How do I show up with the fruits of the Spirit? Only by doing the work. It's the heavy lifting. And then the second half of that answer is because I have no other choice. I'm not willing to live in misery. I'm just
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's been one of your favorite client success stories so far?
Um, a good one. There's some little humps and bumps in there. The most recent one I think has been, and I'm actively working with this client, and her situation is pretty rough. Is really pretty rough, and watching her shift from I have to take care of this person. I'm the only one who cares for them. I'm the only one who can save them to saying, okay, wait a minute. I have given up my whole life for this, and that's not what I'm designed for. Yes, I want to love on this person. I also need to learn to love me and look at what my design is, and that's not selfish.
So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight, you ran into a younger 18-year-old version of you, you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've lived, the wisdom you've gained so far. What advice would you impart on that young version, and would that young version listen?
The answer the second half of the question, no.
Okay.
The first half would be don't abandon yourself. Don't abandon yourself to a job, to a man, to a calling. Don't abandon yourself because God never requires you to abandon yourself. He asks you to bring yourself to him, right? So that you can be grown, you can be challenged, you can be loved, you can be cherished, you can be cared about. But the minute you abandon yourself, you can't see you, he can't see you. He's like, I can't help you if you won't even show up for yourself.
Yeah. So when you were younger, was there a book that you read that was really seminal in your development that you go back to or that you really loved?
So it's resurging again. Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Because
Okay.
when you look at that, and there are several other writers in that area, when you look at that, you look at when everything is taken away from you, everything is taken away from you, what do you have? And you have the choice of how you show up. He says you have the choice of your attitude and how you show up every day.
Yeah.
And people did it in different ways. And he said there were people who gave up their lives so that they could feed and nourish somebody else because that's what they needed to do at that time. But the ones that didn't make it were the ones who were angry and self-pitying and unable to see, abandoning themselves to their situation.
So of all of the things that you've done in your life and evolved into at this point, what are you the proudest of?
Raising my kids,
Yeah.
raising my
What about professionally?
um a lot of things professionally. Figuring out that I had ADHD and it was okay to do a lot of things professionally. Um, Professionally, it's what I'm doing right now. I not only get paid to do this, but I also volunteer for a couple groups, and I am always, you know this. I am always blessed when I sit in there because the setup of the group is I don't have the answers, you don't have the answers. As a combined group, we are going to share experience, strength, and hope with each other and build this community so that we can put the next foot in front of the next foot in front of the next foot. Now, I know groupthink can go terribly wrong.
Yeah.
On the other hand, when you have some guiding biblical principles, you can see where I'm coming from. You have some guiding biblical principles. That's the guide. It's not that everybody has exactly the same opinion. I don't want you to, but that's the guide. We can always come back to the fact that killing your neighbor is wrong. We can come back to this. We can come back to the greatest of these is love. We can come back to the fruits of the spirit. We can come back to this and go forward. So what I'm doing now is the most rewarding and it's the most difficult, the most personally challenging. I'm at the end of my kid raising. The most personally challenging has been raising those kiddos and doing it with integrity.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
You're asking me the right question at the right time. So I I am cherished, I'm loved, I'm not perfect and I fail, but I am willing to get in the arena and do the work and fight the fight. And it's all going to play out. It's all going to play out. But I'm willing to be there and stand next to you while you do this, or while I do this, and
Yeah,
hold the bucket.
right. For sure. So let's say we get off this call, a time machine pulls up in front of your house. You can go back in time and see one event in human history, or you can go into the future. Where are you going to go?
Ooh. Where am I going to go? I hadn't thought about the future. I know where I'd go in the past.
Well, why don't we do it that way? What about maybe you could do both, but where would you go in the past?
In the past, I would go to Jesus's birth in the cave and to see the holy angels, to see God's face for the first time. They hadn't seen God's face before that. To see God's face for the first time, to understand that total mystery of what was happening there, to just be present for that amazing moment. To go forward, I don't know, that could be painful. To go forward, I'd like to see my children as they have had children and they're having grandchildren, the people that I won't see,
Yeah.
those generations that I won't see. I'd like to see how that plays out. That could be painful. I had the first one at 35 and the second one at 39, so I probably will see grandchildren, but if they wait too long, I may not.
Yeah, right, for sure. That's such a great painting behind you. Is that an original?
this is what I wanted, didn't happen, and so I made this instead.
Good job. I like it. That's really cool. So, Tanya, if anyone out there wants to hire you, reach out, learn more about what you're doing, any of the good business in your world, where can they go?
TanyaGioia.com. It's all right there.
Okay, excellent. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for opening up. Thank you for the good energy and the story. I appreciate it.